Okay, could you introduce yourselves and tell me what your connection is with North Kilworth?
Okay, my name is Belinda McKee and I moved to North Kilworth in 1994 and lived here kind of ever since, although moved up the road slightly out of the village in 2012. But I'm still very much consider myself a local because I have a horse in the village at my friend here's property, and so I'm in the village twice a day.
My name's Sharon Burke. We moved to North Kilworth in 1988 and we lived first in Station Road and then we moved to Little London and we've been there over 28 years I think it is now. And I met Belinda through riding, which we used to do together. Unfortunately that not anymore. And then we decided to launch the North Kilworth News after
there was a gap, wasn't there?
Nick and Jude were giving it up, weren't they? And we thought, well, we'll have a go at it. And Vicky joined us, and the three of us decided that it would be quite a good partnership because Belinda, you were mixing with a certain age group, with a reading group, WI. I was mixing with a different age group, and Vicky was mixing with the younger mums, and it sort of complemented each other, didn't it?
Yeah.
So what's the vision of the North Kilworth? What is it, and what's the vision of the North Kilworth News?
Well, we've obviously always said it has to be for the community, but we very much wanted to also support local businesses.
That's very much my feeling, that it needed to support local businesses.
And local organisations, so all the local groups, clubs and societies and things like that, we wanted to include them, and we wanted to encourage people to participate. So, there was always things about, volunteers wanted for this, and have you got a letter you want to write to us, letters to the editor, and we're quite keen to kind of generate ongoing talk about different things. So
And how often does it appear?
Every month.
And how does it appear?
So we've done it every month since November. It was November, wasn't it? 2013.
Yes, it was, yes.
November 2013. We've done it since then, and we've had it printed. I think we've always been with Minuteman Press in Rushworth, and they've been superb. So they've always been our printers. So it's that 20th of the month is the deadline for the following month, and then there's this mad dash to get it all done over the next few days. Sharon overseeing all the adverts and me overseeing the rest, really.
Yeah, which is 99%. Oh no, probably 98%.
No, because you also chase people for the invoices and stuff. But anyway, and then we hope to get it back by the end of the month from the printers, and then it goes to the distribution team for distributing. Well, that was the plan right up until April 2020.
Okay, so how did lockdown change the whole way in which the North Kilworth News operated?
Well, this one which I've brought is April 2020, and so it's not quite our last printed one, but it was the last of what I call the old generation, really. Obviously that was put together in March, but lockdown was imminent, I've called this one Life in Uncharted Waters, and it really explains about all the things that are happening in the village and how we had to change one advert 3 times over, didn't we, for the White Lion, because every time he sent us the advert in, a day or so later he was having to change what he was allowed to do. So the poor landlord, Cliff at the White Lion, just was changing things rapidly all the time. So that was very much, and then also the content of the newsletter is very different because it's all about how COVID is affecting everybody. So there's a letter from people thanking them for their help. There's a group, the COVID-19 support group, and then there's lots of cancellations. Everything slowly being closed down and cancelled. The gardens that were going to be open, the WI group, the last parish council meeting, and then of course it went online. So I think everything was just slowly closing down, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes.
So did the North Kilworth News still appear after lockdown happened?
We didn't do one. Did we do one at all in May? I don't think we did. I think we had a month off in May, and then
we were just stunned, weren't we, with what was happening?
And then we did an online one in June. We had printed one in July, and then we've done online for August and September. Main reason is that it's difficult to get it distributed, because whereas we had a distribution team, they're not so keen to walk around the village and put things in people's boxes, post boxes and stuff now. So that's been the main reason why that part of it is broken down. But I, for one, am very keen that it should get printed again. I know you're not so sure about that.
No, I'm quite thinking that an online version is the way forward until the end of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes, I mean, Lifeline is too strong a word for it. It's only a village newsletter, but I do think that for some groups, particularly older age groups, like something coming through in black and white through the post that they can look through, rather than being online. And we don't have everybody's email addresses, so it doesn't get round to everybody.
Although it does get put on the website by Catherine.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
people may not realise.
And that's the parish council website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
So it's a partnership really with the parish council involved as well?
Yeah, very much so. Parish council,
They fund it.
they fund
They
it.
fund it?
Yeah, they fund the newsletter.
Yeah.
And the church partnership between the church, parish council,
Yeah.
and
And obviously the advertisers do pay for their advertising space, or have done, but Sharon suggested, and it was a good idea, to not charge people during the crisis.
no, so we could support the businesses, and also we were aware that Belinda would be moving away from the village, and if the newsletter didn't continue, we didn't want to have, because we charge for an annual subscription, we didn't want people to be halfway through their subscription, so we thought we'd let it run, and then naturally they would come to an end.
Yeah.
Okay. So massive changes for you, but also you've experienced the changes that businesses were going through when you've been dealing with them as well. Yeah.
Yes. And certainly, I suppose I've had more contact with the publican at the White Lion, really, and you know the ongoing difficulties, and that kind of being so close to not having any income coming in. It's just a terrifying prospect, I think, for people.
Do you have any particular observations of how lockdown has affected North Kilworth? Personal observations, anything you want to particularly share?
I think initially people enjoyed spending time with their families, and
Yes.
you saw so many people out walking
Yes.
and keeping fit. It was nice to see, and I think people always look back on the time and cherish the fact that they got their children, they got their families, and that they were with them. And obviously that wasn't unfortunate. Belinda was in a different situation, and you were in isolation.
I was on my own, although I did used to come into the village to see to my horse, and I did used to walk the dog, and I would echo that really. I found that people who I didn't know were stopping and chatting. Obviously I know lots of people in the village, but there were people I didn't know, and that was really nice, people out walking. Some had obviously come from outside the village to walk around here, because we're so lucky with our bridleways and footpaths. But so I think people were generally very much friendlier and kind of casting about for things to do, and the weather being so fine and sunny, they were all outside. We actually had a bit of a problem with people coming up and feeding the horses, didn't we?
Yes, but they didn't never even walk the bridle path normally. It doesn't get walked only about twice a year, and then you get lots of villagers wondering where it went when it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But no, it was funny, strange times at the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that time in March, I think the speed of change was just immense.
I think everybody was in shock.
I also do a newsletter for the MS Society, and we had our annual lunch on the 8th of March, so that was over 100 people, all coming together, having lunch, etc., and then I did the photographs and then put them into the newsletter with the idea that it was all going to be finished by the end of that week, which it was. And I was starting to put in, do you think we ought to say something about coronavirus? So we were just starting to say there may be some limitations on what groups are going to be meeting. And by the time it was printed, I was so glad that I put in those bits, because suddenly life had changed. And you looked back a fortnight later and couldn't believe that over 100 people had met for a lunch together, because that would just be completely unknown and not allowed.
We got off a cruise ship on the 8th of March.
You did, didn't you?
I couldn't actually believe the speed of what was happening when we got home, when we came off that cruise ship. It was just, we were thinking, oh, you know, we're lucky to get off this. Some cruise ships have been having people quarantined on, and we're lucky to get off. But never even though there was an Italian ship in that wasn't allowed to dock in Barbados, it wasn't. It was had to. We were just thinking, we're British are all right. We're fine. We're going to be okay. Little island, but that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Even just 2 weeks later, completely.
The world had changed.
The world had changed in 2 weeks.
It's right, it did, didn't it? You blinked and it had changed. And I can remember having a conversation with Sharon's husband about trying to keep the business open. And you were quite unusual, actually, in keeping running, weren't you?
We were very unusual at the beginning. We felt that it was the right thing to do, and some employees didn't really feel that, because Boris Johnson wasn't very clear with construction. It was 6 weeks later, but initially he was saying that if you couldn't work from home, you had to work from home, and if you couldn't work from home, unless you were an essential key worker, you shouldn't be working. And employees felt that they shouldn't really be working. But we did keep it going because we thought that that was the right thing to do. Everybody was socially distanced, extra cleaning measures in place. Everybody was so COVID aware at the beginning, which we were as well as a business. But so many suppliers had shut their doors, and you just couldn't get goods. It was just bizarre. It was the most strangest time for a business to be trying to run. And you got Piers Morgan on telly saying, oh, construction workers are all on the tube, they shouldn't be there. And we've got sites in London that we were sending our guys to. Is this the right thing to do? Should we be doing it? But we did do it. And I think it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do.
I think it was, and actually slowly other businesses started coming back.
Did.
But I mean, it's that difficulty, isn't it? The government wanted a clear message, and they're... Okay, so I had always done my own shopping. I hadn't got an online one sorted out. So I found it very difficult to get onto online shopping because nobody would take me. They were all full up and I couldn't get a slot. And so I struggled a bit. I had bought in plenty of supplies. I had a kind neighbour who brought me some things. And then I found that at Farndon Fields, you could either have a delivery or you could do a click and collect. And it was just such a treat to go and drive in the car all the way to Market Harbour. It felt like
the roads are so
an outing.
Quiet,
The outing was actually just to go into a car park, open the boot, and they put your shopping in the back. But that was very, very strange, I think, not being able to go out and buy things when you wanted to, because I think in this point in time in the 21st century, we have been used to being able to buy what you want, when you want it, whenever. And to suddenly not be able to go that, so you're running out of toilet rolls, you're running out of hand wash or whatever, and the shelves are empty apparently if somebody tries to get it for you. I make my own bread, there was no bread flour, and it was just very, very odd not being able to go out and do these things. I found it very frustrating.
I was lucky because I'd got delivery pass with Sainsbury's, so I was prioritised. Yeah. So I only actually ever went to the supermarket once, and Natalie at work had been telling me how bad it was. I didn't believe her. I went into Sainsbury's and the shelves were empty. I just did not believe what I was seeing. It was a Friday night and the vegetables were gone. Everything was just the cleaning product, no cleaning products.
Yeah, that's right.
It was no pet food, nothing. It was just the most strangest experience, but because I got the delivery pass, that was the only time I ended up going in. And I did use Farndon Fields Farm Shop after that if I did want any bits, because they were so good and they're always very well stocked, weren't they?
Yeah,
And their food is lovely.
Yeah,
So.
and they were really helpful.
And they're very helpful. But the major supermarkets, they struggled at the beginning, and then they got their act together, didn't they? They got more delivery drivers, they got more lorries, but you couldn't, literally, you were fighting for your slots. There were none for 3 weeks in advance, and then you constantly had to keep going back on the site to see if you could just get one that had dropped.
I was so happy when I discovered, Asda took me on, and I discovered that because I'm often awake in the night, if I got up, they obviously start off their slots at something like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Let them off.
So if I was there at 2 o'clock in the morning, I could get a slot.
And Sainsbury's seemed to, you've learnt that they did theirs about midweek. So if you went on midweek, you think that there wouldn't be one, and you'd actually just managed to get one. And then, so it was very odd.
But I know, that was very strange.
So if I were to ask you, what 3 words would you use to describe lockdown? What would those 3 words be?
I would say eerie stillness is one, so stillness would certainly be my first one, because I think there was that eerie stillness across the whole countryside. Fear, because I think there was a fear everywhere of what was happening, what to come, something we hadn't experienced before. Not sure what my third one would be.
Sharon, you got any ideas?
I was just uneasy. Uneasy because you just didn't know where this was going. I mean, I was quite optimistic at the beginning. When he announced a 3-week shutdown, I actually thought that it might just be 3 weeks. And then when it wasn't going to be 3 weeks, it was, and then you think, well, maybe another 3. But when, it's like with people with school children, they never envisaged that they would be off school until September. That just was not something that we would have ever believed could have happened. It didn't. But I've tried to be optimistic, because you have to be, I think, just because you have to keep, oh no, this is all going to be fine, we're going to be fine, we're going to. But uneasy with that, I think.
My third one's panic.
Panic,
because I think a lot of people, I think there has been a lot of panic, and I could see fear in people's eyes when I was walking around.
Yeah, that was bizarre. If you pass people on the footpath, and then they would move away from you or turn their back to you.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, something very strange.
Yeah, so there were some people, I think, and I felt very sorry for them, who obviously were just so living in fear that a chap I know, his mum asked whether she could open her window or whether the virus might come in the window and get her. Old lady living on her own was worried to even open a window, let alone didn't want to have the confidence to go outside at all. So I think that kind of, but also I'd say panic goes for the government as well, because I think there's been an awful lot of panic, and I think it's very hard for a government in this situation. This is not something they signed up for or envisaged. But I think there have been some pretty awful decisions made at times. So I think there's been quite a lot of institutional panic as well.